Right now on Close Up with The Hollywood Reporter.
I could not wait to see Prometheus. And I've heard you're going to do Blade Runner sequel. Yes!
I'm going to shoot a horse. Where I put the camera? They are very big. If I could, I cut the hair of the rider. Literally, I was having
I like having that dream that I want to do that is maybe unattainable. If we capture as much of it as we can, we're fortunate. It's magic.
We'll hear from the directors behind the year's most acclaimed films. Quentin Tarantino, The Hateful Eight. David O. Russell, Joy. Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs. Tom Hooper, The Danish Girl. Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, The Revenant. Ridley Scott, The Martian. Hello and welcome to Close Up with The Hollywood Reporter. I'm Stephen Galloway, Executive Editor of Features, and let's get started. So I want to ask you, what is the biggest challenge facing film today?
I think there's some philosophical problems with film today, but what exactly do you mean?
What do you mean by philosophical problems?
You mean bad stories?
No, I guess, I mean, look, I guess where I'm coming from is this, to some degree or another, is I don't know if we're giving people enough reason to leave their house and go to the movies. Now, I actually do, I'm not trying to be a broken record, I actually do think the digital production, the digital shooting, and the digital projection has a whole lot to do with that because, well, if we're just watching a DVD, I could watch that at home. I mean, frankly, I have to tell you the truth, a lot of films that 10 years ago I would have actually went out to the theaters and watched and saw, I can wait for them to get to the cable channels. I can wait for them to get to the movie channel. I can wait for them to get to Showtime Extreme or HBO. And I really feel no loss. And, I'm watching them 6 or 7 months later, and I'm perfectly enjoying them. But I didn't really miss that much.
I agree. I agree with you. And what you're saying is something that the other day I was talking, that I think that independent filmmaking, in a way, has transported to TV. So that TV now is the home to good independent filmmakers. There's great stories, great things. And in a way, the screens are now full of films that look like TV, just in a big screen. So there is no revelation, there's no mystery. As you said, that why I'm going to pay that. And I have an 18-year-old son who's, in a way, I learned from him what he's getting from the world. And
what have you learned from him?
What Quentin is saying, that to make him go to a cinema, he has to have a big reason, because almost everything he can find accessible immediately in home. You know what I mean? So there has to be a huge kind of thing, something that will. That's what he said. I need the mystery of it.
I think I'm going to just say it, okay? I think the bar is lower because there are way too many films being made. And therefore, I think there's a lot of directors who maybe there's too many in the field, and therefore, I think the general quality, I tried to flick through, I came in late last night, try to flick through on a big digital screen there is to watch. And what there is to watch is anything significant doesn't go on there yet.
What's the last great film you saw?
On TV?
Anywhere?
Funnily enough, I saw a very, very good film last night, and I can't remember her bloody name, but it was a very, very well done film about a woman great comedian, now actress, excellent.
Oh, the Sarah Silverman movie? I haven't seen it, but I just heard about it.
It's excellent. And
made
so all this big
$500,000 budget.
Yeah, how much?
$500,000.
Yes, all this big brouhaha and all these flashy movies with lots of digital effects and all that shit. This film, and when you watch a film, I'm either held immediately. It's like great writers, when you're on a page with a great writer, within half a page, you know who you're with normally, right? With a film, you know pretty well almost immediately whether you're going to stay or not. And I was right there through this. Who's the director? Sarah Silverman was absolutely excellent. Should be one of the people included in this year's nominees.
Is this a great era of film, David?
Fantastic.
I think it's a fantastic year for film, yes. I'm very happy to be at this table with all these people.
But you know what, because it's pushed the envelope, what you're saying is there's an inherent anxiety of any serious filmmaker. So what it's doing is forcing the standard. It's raising the bar.
Yes.
Which is good.
But you just said the bar had been lowered.
I did, but when you see that we had 2 years ago, a terrible year. Was it a terrible year? I can't remember. Anyway, 3 years, whatever it was. Oh, fuck, you won 2 years ago. Shit, sorry about that. Somewhere there was a terrible year, like three years ago. It was really raining. It felt depressing. And I think it had an effect on any filmmaker who is serious about what he's doing. It affected things in a good way. It's pushed it up.
Danny, what's the biggest problem for you facing film today?
Well, I suppose we've just come off a bruising kind of experience with Steve Jobs trying to open it out much wider in America. So we've kind of failed, really, to reach that widest audience. And I think probably we all believe in that you should reach that widest audience, because this is not a club.
We're bums on seats. If we're not,
it's
we're dead.
like it started as its origins are kind of like ordinary people at the end of a tough week. They just want to go and lose themselves in some extraordinary idea or image or creation. So I suppose that's what I'm thinking about at the moment, is how do you reach that audience? And maybe they are staying at home, watching it on their boxes.
But you just took a key reason for it, though, because I've been saying this since the 80s when movie ticket prices, they were $5 forever in America. And then all of a sudden they started moving up to $6.50 and $7 and $7.25 and $7.50 and all that stuff. The key to what you're saying is this is a working man's art form. Yeah. It's not opera, it's not theater, it's not going to a big concert. It was the idea was that anybody could go and see a movie. That was one of the reasons why movies flourished in the 30s, and it's not anymore. No. We have priced them out until now it's a deal. All right.
But I don't think it's just pricing out. I think you've got to keep up the standard. And when the standard, how many movies are made a year globally?
Well, thousands, but not all get distributed.
Just out of the United States, then, what do we make a year?
900 and 1,000?
Yeah, well, that's probably 500 too many. So, I'm serious. I mean, you just run out of options and ideas and...
Tom, do you think it's the working man's medium? Those aren't your films.
Yours aren't, Tom. Yours are very highbrow.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like...
Really just called
Danny,
you highbrow, is that true?
Tom, you're highbrow. Dude.
I hope my numbers of the last 2 films defend me against that. No, I mean, I've always felt that I make films for audiences. I mean, I really don't make them for myself, because by the time you've finished a film, you've watched it so many hundreds of times that the idea that you would have made it for yourself. I mean, by that point, you're doing anything you can to try to re-experience your film with the freshness of a new viewer, and you're trying to get back to that. For me, I've always made it for the audience and not for myself.
Alejandro,
I don't ever do that. I only make it for me.
Alejandro, who are you making your films for?
He makes it for you, don't you?
Well, I think as a species, we have to look at each other. I think if tomorrow atomic bomb finish the humanity and I'm the only one staying alive, do I will make a film to see myself? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I think at the bottom line, we are made to communicate and to express. That's what film is about. It's to share, the need to share, to express.
Let's say that atomic bomb goes off. You've got a time capsule. You're going to put one moment in film, in the history of film, in that time capsule for the future alien races. What moment in film would you choose?
It's the bone, isn't it, in 2001? It's that cut, isn't it? From the bone to the spaceship.
Maybe the best edit in history.
Yeah, there you go. That says something about us.
You mean if there's the last film?
Absolutely. With one film, we're going to put in that time capsule.
Muriel's
one
Wedding.
Moment. Muriel's Wedding?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen it 6 times.
Have you really?
Fantastic.
Quentin?
I would, frankly, to tell you the truth, I would probably take a really I'm not going to pick out which one right now, but I would probably take a really magnificent cinematic action scene. You know, one of the really great action scenes of all time. I'm not going to go through that because I'm sure I won't like pressured what I chose. But okay, I will. Okay, the final climax of Jackie Chan's Police Story 3. That is directed by Stanley Tong. That is a sequence that that aliens would watch and be amazed at what they saw. All right, and I could go for some more slickly made action scenes, and that could work too, but that would be a thing of what cinema could do. That could actually give you an understanding of cinema in all of its bells and whistles and movement.
There's that Nick Park, the climax of Wrong Trousers.
That action
Yes.
that's one of the greatest
Yes.
action sequences I've ever
I
seen.
used that when I made Three Kings.
Yeah?
The rhythm of it. I just love watching the rhythm of it. I love
As they
watching
build the train
the way
track.
they cut it, the way they cut the whole thing. So when I thought with the chase sequences leaving Three Kings, I wanted them to have that propulsive quality of leaving a village, a missile being fired at them. They're talking to each other in the car. It's just one. That's a fantastic. I watched it many times. It's
Do you
Wallace and
watch other
Gromit.
films
Wallace and Gromit.
when you're preparing? Like I know that Bob Zemeckis says he watches The Godfather before he shoots anything.
I watch films incessantly. I like watching films. They're like music to me. So, it's like, I love it. They make me happy. They make me want to live. They make me want to get out of bed. It's like great music. So I watch many of the films made at this table repeatedly. They were all inspirations to me. I've been watching recently a David Lean film called Hobson's Choice.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Which, is such a treasure, and it's such a cousin or ancestor of joy, because it's about a woman doing an unlikely thing with like her father runs a shoe shop, Charles Lawton, and in Manchester, and she has to she's underestimated, and she has to go out and make herself, and it's a fantastic, perfect film.
So what will your moment in film be?
It depends on what day you ask me, you know what I'm saying? I mean, right now, I loved a sequence I saw last night, because I watch it until it runs out of gas for me, and I'm like, oh, I'm sad, I'm sick of it now. It's no longer new to me. So I have to put it down, and that could be a sequence. I love that sequence when they go and shoot, when Eli Roth shoots that guy. I got 30 seconds to shoot that, whatever it is, 10 seconds to shoot that guy.
yeah.
Can you do it?
Shoot the girl.
Can you do it? I have to.
Boom, bada, boom, boom,
Yes,
boom, boom,
yes,
boom,
yeah. So that's really fun when that's fresh. Then you watch it 100 times, you're like, it's not fresh now, and I have to go watch something else.
Alejandro, what about you?
Wait, no, I'll say what it is. So Hobson's Choice. Sorry, Hobson's Choice. I would say the scene where she takes this guy. Her father says, "You're a spinster. You're done," which is a little bit like De Niro underestimating Jennifer's character. Women get underestimated. Anybody gets underestimated. There's no greater inspiration you can give somebody than to underestimate them. Some people. That's that throws down the gauntlet to them.
Do you feel you've been underestimated at times? I was thinking you had a stretch of 7 years where you had trouble making films.
Yes.
How do you deal with those things as a director?
I feel like if you get the chance to, any artist, I think, can, it's like J.D. Salinger. He wanted to be a great writer, and he was a 25-year-old kid on Park Avenue who had a great voice. But it wasn't until he landed on D-Day and had trauma. He was in every great battle, Battle of the Bulge, the Hurtgen Forest, just eviscerating trauma. And he met Hemingway in Paris, who said to him, "I think you got a good voice, kid." And that meant everything to him. But that made him, that pain and humility. Holden Caulfield is a fractured war veteran. I never understood that with gray hair. That's why he's not just an adolescent. But there's a fractured war veteran that's in all of us that endures what we go through in life. And the more you go through the blood and guts of your life and you get humbled, which I got humbled, it's a good thing. It makes you more human. It makes you love more stories. You're more open to humanity. Whether it's a working class person running a metal garage or someone who's going to do something beautiful and sing, it's just, you got to find the grit of it. So to me, that's what that is.
Cool.
I think that, just taking some points before, when we were talking about film in a way, there's two things that are, I think, important. What has happened in the economy in the world is happening to the film itself. So the 99% and the 1% kind of division, now there's like super expensive films or just a very tiny budget film. Like the middle class or the middle budget films are disappearing. Obviously, the ways we have been, the exhibitors has just obviously chosen the big budget things to be exhibit. So, but that doesn't mean that there's a great diversity for people to watch in cinema. There's a small amount of kind of films that make it there. So all those kind of polarizing things that are happening is affecting film in a way, as a workman kind of access to everything. And at the same time, I think what David is saying, I feel compelled about it, because when you ask me what kind of scene I will have, more than anything, I just remember scenes or moments of film that I quite even now doesn't understand what they meant to me, but they just get me in a place that I couldn't understand what I was feeling, but I felt some revelation in myself. Like Stalker from Tarkovsky that the other day I saw with my kid, I mean, every time that I saw that film, I was just saying how he did that shot, what these mean, why these guys are dressed like that, what is that sound is telling me? So all that mystery that I I'm just feeling a revelation of a human experience that connect me with something that I'm not thinking. It's an intuition kind of thing.
Instinct.
When that happened in cinema is when I'm like, when I met somebody and it reveals something that I have never thought or saw. Those are the moments that for me are very personal because maybe it doesn't mean nothing to nobody else.
Do you think sequels are, I mean, I know sequels are good for the economy of the film, but do you think sequels are wearing us out a little bit? Is it tiresome? Do sequels become tiresome? I think they do, but you can't blame a studio for wanting to do it because it's financial return, correct?
Yeah, but I could not wait to see Prometheus. I couldn't wait. We were shooting in New Orleans doing Django Unchained, and like the entire crew went out to a New Orleans theater to see it because it was Ridley dealing with Alien again, and that was so exciting. We were just counting the days until Friday happened, and then we just like took over the theater in mass. You know, I think like on a Wednesday or something because that was our easy day.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying was also good because. And
I've heard you're going to do Blade Runner sequel. Yes.
Yeah. But I think what you're saying is right. To run out of stories and ideas is entirely wrong because in the head and the capability and the sensitivity of whoever the filmmaker is. So you can make a feature film about a pen, depending on what your vision is. It's just that simple. So any story is a good story. They say, what's your plan? There is no plan. Or like that, I'm going to make a film about blue pens. The biggest single word is vision.
I want to come back to the thing you said about the 99 to 1, because you've gone from making independent films to making, very expensive film.
This is the
Revenant.
First one.
It is.
And last one, maybe.
Okay, that's the issue. What went right, what went wrong?
What went right? Well, you will have to see if something went right. The film will have to say what went right. A lot of things went right. It's just that, we have to fight for them a lot, more than I expect. And anybody of you guys, you have just gone through the horses snow. Mm-hmm. What is that about? I mean, I remember that Clint Eastwood last year when we were in that, he said, you are dealing with horses and not snow. I was offered one of those and I didn't take it. Sorry for you. And I didn't know. I have never shot a horse in my life. I have nightmares how I'm going to shoot a horse, where I put the camera. They are very big. If I hit it, I cut the hair of the rider. If I put the rider, I lose the head of these guys. So I was having nightmares discussing with Chivo how we would shoot horses. Yeah. So, I mean, everything in the mountains, in cold weather, in all that, everybody that has been there it's extremely challenging. I'm from a tropical country. So what I'm saying is,
oh my God, I'm hitting that.
Every problem we could have faced, and especially climate, and we were exposed 97% of the film is exteriors, and in remote locations, in incredibly bad conditions, and everything that we were expecting something to happen, it happened the other thing. So once you are negotiating with the weather, it's like a terrorist. Everything can explode in any moment. So we went through that. And we responsibly, I think all of us has to be making tough decisions. And this film for me, that is the first, all the films that I have done are low budget or middle budget, and I'm very good in the budget because I'm a producer. But it's because this was like rock climbing without a rope. Once we established the rules of the film and the language and the vision and what we want to achieve, we couldn't get out of that. You know what I mean? Suddenly we cannot change and said, let's go to a blue screen and because it will collapse. So we were in the middle and there is no way back. When you are rock climbing, or you go up or you die. And we couldn't.
Well, one of the things that kind of prepared me because we had a lot of the same issues and same problems. And one of the things that kind of prepared me for that, because you're 100% right, one of the things that prepared me for that was watching a documentary about Apocalypse Now and hearing Vittorio Storaro talking. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Storaro said was about creating an aesthetic, creating a norm, and then once you do that, you can't go back. And they were talking about the Duvall sequence, and not the big action scene, but just when they're talking and everything. Helicopters were in the air. They put helicopters in the air, and they realized that once they did that, they couldn't get them out of the air. All right, it was like the whole thing collapsed if there weren't helicopters flying around all the time. And so that means every time they rolled camera, they had to coordinate with the helicopters and get them flying around and whatever and create that kind of mayhem. But it was that mayhem that they were trying to capture. And they couldn't just settle down and just do a close-up because the helicopter still had to be doing its thing. I told that to the crew. I'm going, we're going to create this certain thing and we can't go backwards. You know, if it means when it comes to a certain snowfall that we eventually capture, if that means it takes us 3 months to do this scene because we have to match that snowfall, then that's what it takes.
My feeling is I'm a strategist because I've done so much experience. The most experience I've ever had in my life was 2,000 commercials. Every which way, upside down, in lakes, underwater, in snow. And that's a textbook that you're never going to get in the career as a filmmaker. And so I was so informed by the time I'd finished television commercials that doing a film became physically pretty straightforward because you'd stare at the problem and say, I've got to watch that. You watch the problem coming over the horizon, and if it's a problem, knock its head off before it gets near you. That's how I made commercials. That's why we were very successful.
What was your toughest challenge on The Martian?
None. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the biggest thing was getting the bloody screen. That screenplay was very, very nice screenplay. I didn't develop it. It was written by Drew. Very good adaptation, a very good book. So once I have that, it's pretty straightforward.
Commander, Mark is dead. We have to go now.
Now you can either accept that, or you can get to work. This will come as quite a shock to my crewmates, and to NASA, and to the entire world. But I'm still alive. Surprise.
Tom, what about you on Danish Girl?
Well, I mean, I you know, things I find strangest about directing is, for me, I find like your principal battles on a daily basis you're fighting, or sometimes your most urgent battles are actually against lack of time and lack of money, lack of resources. And yet all of us find ways to render this fight invisible. So when you see the final film, you're not aware of what the directors were really facing, because the harder you fight it, the more you make it unclear. So for me, I had a screenplay with 184 scenes and 44 days to shoot it. So that was 4 scenes every day. And so I lived intimately with the reality of lack of time, which is, you know, doing 4 or 5 takes at the most, not necessarily having the time to kind of explore everything to the extent that I might like, so having to work very instinctively. It's a strange part of the job, and I think it's often why when you talk to members of the public who don't know the business, they don't understand what you do, because it doesn't seem pressured in the way that you experience the pressure. Just going back to going back to where we started, I mean, the image that came to mind when you said what moment would you pick is the match being blown out in Lawrence of Arabia, that cut from the match blow to the landscape. And I was thinking about what you were saying about what is it that even now, as you're asked that question, that image stays in my head. And as a young child, I experienced that on the big screen in the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square, which is the only cinema in London that played those great movies. There was something so extraordinary about it, but you couldn't explain it or put it into words. It had a mystery that to this day, when I play that film at that moment in my head, it still seems mysterious. And
have any of you had a moment in your careers where you just were despaired and thought, I'm going to give up and do something else?
I made a space movie, and it's called Sunshine, which is weird, making space movies, because you are in the footsteps of the people who've been there before, principally him. Yes. And I developed this theory because it was so tough defying gravity. Just somehow, actually, things not having gravity is just impossible. And I despaired. And I remember thinking, and then when the film came out and I did all the publicity, I remember having this shtick where I said, I've looked at it, and no director who's ever been in space ever goes back to space unless he's got to do a sequel. And then he's defied it, of course, with Martian. And then he sits there and says it wasn't any problem at all.
But you know, watch Stanley, and in 2001, they begin on a running wheel. You cut outside the ship, and I'm going, hang on, Stanley, where's the wheel? There's no fucking wheel on that thing. There's a ball and a train, and where's the wheel? There is no wheel. So he cheated, and I'm sure he agonized over The wheel gives me gravity. That wheel gives you gravity.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And the wheel at the outer perimeter, all it has to do is run at 5 miles an hour, and you've got gravity. And he must have agonized over that, because when you come to the outside of the ship, which is fundamentally a white train with a ball on it, I don't think that wheel was in that ball, dude. Okay.
Did you ever meet him, Kubrick?
No, I talked to him. I've got a very nice story about Stanley. But I'd finished Blade Runner, and it was a disaster. And my investors were giving me a really hard time. Said, how can you can't end the film with this picking up a piece of origami and looking at the girl walking the elevator, nodding, and bingo, that's it. I said, it's called a film noir. They said, what's a film noir? So that was a big not problem. And he said, we have to test this with a uplifting ending. Why do we always want uplifting ending? Uplifting ending where they will go off into the wilderness together. So if they go off into a beautiful wilderness, why do they live in this dystopian environment? All right, I'll do it. So by then I talked to Stanley a few times. I called him up and said, listen, I know you shot the hell out of wherever it was in The Shining. I know you've got 4.5 months of helicopter stuff there because you don't like to go in the air. Can I have some of the stuff because it'll suit me fine? The next day I had 17 hours of helicopter footage from Stanley. So the end of the film in Blade Runner is that Stanley Kubrick's footage going into...
That's incredible.
Yeah. But he said...
You didn't know that?
No, but he said, Winner, you got a vehicle? I said, yeah. What's it long? Oh, shit. Every shot I've got has got a Volkswagen in it. Then he went, oh, what did you shoot? I said, animal warfare. Ah, jolly good. When you project mine, it'll look oblong. You'll be fine. Then, a day later, he called me and said, it's Stanley. I went, what? He said, one other thing. I know you're looking through my footage right now. If you use anything that I use, you can't have it. Got it? I went, okay, boom. That was it. That was Kubrick.
Wow.
Amazing.
I want to go back
And the
to...
romantic ending of that is very magical and beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I go to the cinemas, for magic.
Well,
and there's
you like
magic
the
even in
countryside?
noir. I love the magic that she's there, Sean Young, and that that's something beautiful.
You should have been my producer, you see.
No, but that film of Kubrick, of Blade Runner, is full of, at least that's a good example of the mystery and the revelations and the atmosphere. That it's not about story. I mean, 2001 is about what? I don't care. It's just I felt an experience that it is this atmosphere and light and film and space make that. And your film is full of those moments, I think.
I want to go back to the question asked, which is, you've had everyone here has had tough times in the film business. Has there been a point where you thought of giving up?
But I think when you ask us all about where we see the business going, maybe
He hasn't had tough times. I really haven't had tough times. We've been like incredibly lucky.
I mean,
No, we're doing all right.
I know some great directors in our town who are friends of mine who have said to me, have come back from rough experiences and said, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? I understand people going through that, because it can be very, very intense and very challenging, and you can come back and you're exhausted. But I get so much magic and inspiration out of it, and it's such a privilege to make a movie. You get to live in a magic world and create magic, so you pay the price. Everybody pays the price who goes to work, and many people lose the magic, which is a sad thing. And how can they find it again? We get to try to make magic, and that always makes me it gets me excited. And my son, on the other hand, who's 21, lives to go to the movies. You see, he doesn't like watching them on devices. He likes to go out. That's like a whole thing with his girlfriend. He loves going out. He'll go to 2 movies.
Let's get them together.
Good.
Would you make another big budget film after Revenant?
I will do, I don't know. I'm so exhausted now, honestly.
You are.
It's the first time that I have done 2 in a row. I think Ridley is the master of that. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, you never stop working.
You never stop. I don't know how. You do take time.
Yeah,
between one
it's
and
usually
in.
3. Well, because I am always writing my scripts from scratch. So there always is this absolute downtime that built into that, because you get to live a life while you're writing at the same time, but you're incredibly invigorated by doing it and stuff. So that always creates like a 3-year gap between one movie and the next movie.
Yeah, I have been like that, but I started this film before Birdman, so I did Birdman, so then it collapsed, and I physically I cannot even think about any other film in the future.
If you did something else, if you had to do some other career, what would it be?
I can't do nothing.
It's funny. Sometimes people have said to me, if you were on Survivor, you'd be the first person asked to leave the island because they'd say, "Can you build a house?" I go, "No, but I can tell someone what I want them to do with an oven." But hopefully, I would stay on Survivor because I would entertain people and tell them
Who
stories.
in this room would survive the most on Survivor? Well, you would. You have.
Yeah, I mean,
what's it take?
The physicality of doing the job. I love the physicality of the job. And you're right, we're dead lucky to be allowed to do this.
But I don't think you ever lose, I mean, I never lose the fear that I'll be back as the 12-year-old who fell in love with being a feature director and not being allowed to do it. It's an incredibly hard thing to get to the place to do it. And in fact, I've always seen Ridley as the man who's mastered being able to keep making films in the most fluent way, and it's incredibly hard. So when you say to us, where's the industry going, what are your worries? I think part of it is always just the desire, the hope that you can keep making films, and the fear that somehow you can't.
Ridley, one question: Do you prepare yourself to do a film? So how you maintain physically fit to get that every year, every day?
I think it's my mum. It's genes. My mum was 5 foot tall, and she was like the sergeant major. I don't know.
But you don't have a rigorous kind of diet, exercise routine that keep you, or
no? I just try and be sensible about what I eat. Bit of yoga.
That's it.
I like red wine. I love vodka. What can I tell you?
I want to go back to if you thought of doing anything else at any point. Quentin, what about you?
Well, I'm probably only going to make 10 movies, so I'm already planning on what I'm going to do.
You said this, so you're going to. Are you seriously only going to do 10?
That's why I'm counting them. That's why
you got 2 more left.
Yeah, 2 more left. Yeah.
Why?
I want to stop at a certain point. I don't.
But what would you do then?
What I want to do basically is I want to write novels and I want to write theater and I want to direct direct theater. Well, that's how I feel about it. I got to see how I feel when Hateful Eight is over after I get through going all around the world on it and everything. If I still have the same juice for it. But the next thing I'd like to do is do a theatrical adaptation of Hateful Eight because I actually like the idea of other actors having a chance to play my characters and see what happens from that and everything. So that's where I'm working my way into that time period where I write novels and write film pieces and film books and story novels, but in particularly theater and directing theater.
But that's an evolution, so it's good.
Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Have you ever directed theater?
No, never have.
Have you ever written a play?
No, you know everything I've written.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting.
Hateful Eight. I mean, look, Reservoir Dogs could be put on stage and has been put on stage many times.
And Hateful Eight was done as a stage reading.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you learn from that?
I learned that for the most part, I picked the right actors because the actors, for the most part, that were in that stage reading were the ones in the movie. The other thing that I learned, and this was actually a big part of my thought process, by doing it, and I don't want to get lost into a technical discussion, but by doing it in 65 millimeter and wanting it to be shown in 70, and so we're making these plans before we even shot the movie. I wouldn't be so confident with the idea of thinking about exhibition that early on if I wasn't that confident with the material. And the script reading really went a long way as far as that's concerned. I mean, in something like Inglourious Basterds and Django, you can read it as a script, and I'm very proud of it as almost as a piece of literature, not as a blueprint. But I still have to make it. There still is I have to still figure it out. It's not figured out. It's not for sure that I'm going to pull it off. There is a finding it in the course of making it. That's not the case with this. With the case of Hateful Eight, it was right there. I mean, if I had those actors and we did it in a little theater in Santa Monica Boulevard, 99 seats, it would kill. It would be terrific. If I did it at the Mark Taper Forum, it would be great. If I did it at the Brooks Atkinson Theater, it would be great. If I shot it on 16 millimeter, it would be great. I'm not saying the movie's great. I'm just saying that I like the material. So I had a confidence in it. And so why not do it big?
This here is Daisy Domergue. She's wanted dead or alive for murder. When that sun comes out, I'm taking this woman to hang. Is there anybody here committed to stopping me from doing that?
Well. Looks like Minnie's haberdashery is about to get cozy for the next few days.
Yes, it does.
Do you have thoughts of doing something else?
I would also be a writer. I was a writer before I was a filmmaker.
Screenwriter?
No, I wanted to write fiction. I was always a fiction writer, and that's what it was. My love. My father and mother met in the mailroom at Simon & Schuster. My mother was an Italian girl from Brooklyn, and my father, a Russian immigrant son from Manhattan, and they met at Simon & Schuster. And I'm actually making a documentary about that fascinating world of these. I would also make documentaries because I find they blow my mind when they're done. They open up worlds within worlds. You go all the way back to Charles Dickens trying to collect his royalties in America. When Charles Dickens came to the United States, he was on a train. His first experience, he was on a train. He thought it was snowing or raining, but it was because so many people were spitting out the windows. Spitting was so popular with the spittoons in probably the America that you're doing in your movie. That's how disgusting. And when you would step on a carpet, it would be saturated with the spit from the tobacco spit. And there was no copyright. He couldn't collect his royalties. Anyway, so I'm doing that documentary. I've already started that, which is very fascinating to me to do that.
The documentary's about
the history of the world of publishing and the magic of that world and what happened to it. I always wanted to be a writer. My dad was on the sales side. He was a salesman with a sales case. And, and he would call on all the bookstores, and he knew every great bookstore in America, and he'd go walk into those bookstores. And so books were terribly enchanting to me. They were magical. They supported our household, and I wanted to write one. So I relate to that. And I wanted to cross over to the other side, from the sales side. I wanted to be with the editors and the bookmakers. I wanted to be on that side. So to me, to make film is a big step out of my, to go do that.
Did Making Joy make you feel more like moving on to writing or more like returning to filmmaking?
It's always both for me. I love writing. I always write scripts. They become around 175 pages now. They are more novelistic. They have many worlds in them. I think many good movies have many movies within them that I find as I get older.
That's what I meant about it's not for sure. You still have to decipher it. You still have to break the code when you have these novels that are not scripts.
Yes. And a novel allows you to go into, Jennifer's mother is into soap operas. So we shot a soap opera from the 60s to the 2000s with Susan Lucci and Maurice Bernard, who's like the Brando of soap operas. And those guys are like professional athletes. You say they do 100 scenes a day. So they're my kind of actors. Like I'd go Donna Mills, Susan Lucci, let's have a cat fight. They don't go, well, wait, what's my motivation? They just go bang, because they've done 100 cat fights. I was like blown away by the power of these women actors. So
that might be one of the most interesting things said at the table. The power of soap opera actors. That actually is a nugget. I buy it 100%.
But they blew me away, and they're tireless. Susan Lucci rehearsed a fight scene for 9 hours. This is how they do it. And she got one take to shoot it. That's how they do soaps. So there's a world within the world. This woman of Jennifer that's playing in Joy is made up of a metal garage that De Niro runs. That's for real. Half the movie's based on reality. That's a truck and bus metal garage. You say the helicopter's in the air in Apocalypse Now? This had big sides of trucks and buses smashing down with sparks and welding. I'm like, well, we gotta have that. That's the world. Too bad for the sound. Too bad for the actors. And she has a little girl with her, and it's like, kabam! And the kids like jump.
Did you write the part for her? Because you've worked with her, what, is it 3 times?
This is the 3rd time. We have to agree and be excited about it mutually, and it has to be something we've never done before.
You said to me that David Selznick, the son of immigrants, married Jennifer Jones, an all-American girl from Oklahoma, because in America, all races and all classes can meet and make whatever opportunities they can, and that is what you feel when you reach into people's homes with what you sell. You said that.
This was ambitious for us because Jennifer really goes from 10 years old, she's played by another actress, to 45 years old. That's a lifespan thing for me. And you have many generations of women. You have Diane Ladd, you have Isabella Rossellini, 2 great actresses I always wanted to work with, amazing people who have a history, personally, of working with De Niro. So with Jennifer, we first talk about how is this different? Why would this be something we've never done before, an ambition we've never done before? Well, she never played a 45-year-old woman. She never played someone at 27 who married a Latin singer who had it fall apart. I never saw the best divorced couple in America. What is that? Anna Karenina is a soap opera. Is soap opera trash? No, Anna Karenina is a soap opera. But when she loses the guy, she throws herself on the train tracks. Not Joy, the real Joy or this Joy. She keeps going, and the guy becomes her best friend. I haven't seen that movie, and he works for her to this day.
Alejandro, what were your conversations
that's a cool thing
Leonardo DiCaprio before you made Revenant? Because this was going to be a very tough shoot. He was going to be wrapped in a bearskin, apparently not a real bearskin.
Before Birdman, we started talking, and we were planning to start. The film start in the autumn, the story, and then go to the winter, and then end in the deep winter. So I didn't have a chance to start only in September, let's say, August, September, the shooting has to start there. I didn't have any flexibility. And by that time, he got greenlit with the Scorsese film, Wolf of Wall Street. So he said, can I do this film and we can start in December? And I said, I can't. So, I mean, because we will be shooting in the snow and we have to have, I cannot be shooting the middle of the end part of it without knowing what happened to you in the beginning. So, I mean, it was impossible. So we let it there. Then I went into co-writing Birdman and doing Birdman, which was a completely different, 29 days, completely controlled budget, all, the very comfortable in that sense kind of thing.
In a theater.
In a theater, you know what I mean, with all these characters. And it was easy, it was very, it was challenging as every film, but in a way, we didn't have those things. When I came out, then New Regency, Arnold Milchan and Brad Weston called me and said, what about this one? I said, great, let me talk. So then Leo was interested again, we start talking. And as I was mixing Birdman, we start in pre-production this one. And Leo, in a way, I remember the first time that I saw Leo, which was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which I think is a fantastic movie, and the way he's portrayed a very, vulnerable and fragile. There's something in Leo that I haven't seen in a long time, and I said to Leo, I would love to see you as a fragile, vulnerable. To see the man that can be broken, not to have obviously the complexity of the strength, but at the same time to allow yourself to play that vulnerability and be hit by loss, by weather, and he was very excited about it. And he transformed himself physically. So in a way, he went into a diet. He let his hair grow like here, a beard that it was like almost like Santa Claus, like that. We were both eating our hair all day with fleas around and pasta soup from 2 months before, and every kind of thing. So physically, and now he's 4-year-old, and I think he's in an incredible, the most powerful state in his career. I think I was very privileged to work with him because he's not only smart, but he really is, you have worked with him. He's not afraid of
Did he teach you
try
anything about
everything,
that?
and he give everything.
Oh, yeah.
So
Did he teach you anything about acting or actors?
He has done so many films. He has been 27 years making films.
Working a long
That he's a
time.
filmmaker.
Yeah.
What I like of Leo is that he is not just only an actor, but when he's with you, his comments come from a filmmaker point of view. He understands the film. And so it's not about ego, vanity, or me. No, so I appreciate that a lot. And in this film, differently from other films that he has done, he has almost no words, so few words. So all what he had to do was very difficult, which is to communicate and express or make you feel fear, anxiety, cold, sadness, rage. So, I mean, all those things that are easier to convey with words than with body language and the eyes. And all what he did was eyes movement and the pace, the rhythm. You can ask an actor what you want, but the tempo that has, the pace of it, even if you block 100 times, the blocking, but there's some internal rhythm in the actors that you cannot ask them that. There's a limit. And Leo has this internal rhythm that is just like a machine, like something that is blending things. And I was very impressed by that.
My son. The proper thing to do would be to finish him off quick.
He's to be cared for as long as necessary.
I understand.
Get away! Help!
Who's taught you the most? Has anybody given you a piece of advice that you follow as you make films?
I remember Helen Mirren, learning something from Helen Mirren. I was directing Prime Suspect for TV, and it was like one of the first days of the shoot, and I laid this long track, and she came in first thing in the morning. I said, morning, Helen, and you're going to walk from here to here, and the camera's going to go like this, and there's these great perspectives opening up as the camera tracks. And she looked at me and said, well, why am I walking? I said, well, no, because it's great, because the camera's going to go like this, and you're going to. She goes, why am I walking? I said, well, because this, and then I sort of started to run out of steam, and she said, I think I'd be over there smoking out the window. And I kind of thought about it and realised that actually there was no particular reason why this character was walking, and this moment of a guilty cigarette, which the character's meant to be giving up, was far better. So at that moment, I realised that the truly great actors have a kind of mise en scène in their head, or they arrive on set with even ideas about where to stage it, about their character. And as Alejandro said, it's like if you're open to it, the really great actors have a director's mind as well as an actor's mind, and from that moment on, I've always never imposed the way I'm going to shoot on an actor when they walk on set. I mean, I have my plan, but I always.
What were the conversations with Eddie Redmayne when you did Danish Girl?
We started prepping that about a year out, so he prepared full time for a year for that role, which is extraordinary. He did a lot of outreach into members of the transgender community and met trans women and men, and was very inspired by their stories. But a lot of the work, I mean, we screen tested. I mean, back to Ridley's point about preparation, our first screen test was 7 months out. We did another, screen test 3 months out. We had 3 weeks of rehearsal. But a lot of it was this idea that if you are a woman and your male self is a mask, how do we make it feel that it's not a film about a character transforming, it's a film about a character revealing, so that you feel that Eddie's character Lily has a latent femininity that's been revealed through the film, rather than that a man is becoming a woman. So it involved Eddie sort of getting so into what his suppressed femininity might feel like that playing a man would feel like a kind of suit of armor he was putting on to suppress his true femininity, and then that could slowly, through the course of the movie, be broke down, and we'd see the real self. And then we worked a lot about this idea of hyperfeminization, that if you're a woman who's been living as a man for many years, to become a woman, you might overreach, you might almost sort of overdo your femininity in order to reawaken those muscles or those parts of you that have been long dormant.
Lily, we should go out tonight. Give them something different. Lily, you're exquisite.
You're different from most girls. I feel I'd need to ask your permission before I kissed you.
Exactly what happened last night?
There was a moment when I wasn't me.
Danny, when you worked with Fassbender, he'd never met Steve Jobs, nor had you.
No.
How did you?
Well, he was amazing because he had this enormous. It was like 200 pages of dialogue, most of which was his, and so he had to memorize that and then get through that stage of memorizing. So he didn't sound like Aaron Sorkin. So he sounded like Steve Jobs, or our version of Steve Jobs, and he was extraordinary. And there were 2 things that he did. One was which, and I don't know whether you guys do this. One was which he said to me, because we did a lot of rehearsal before we started shooting, and then we, you turn up in the morning and do a little bit of blocking and stuff like that, and then they go off and get ready. Then we come back, and he said to me, "Will you always shoot the rehearsal? Always shoot it?" And we did. And I would always do that now, forevermore. And the crew were like, especially the focus puller, because it wants to practice for professional reasons, just wants to practice. No. And it was incredible because it lifts everybody. They're on guard like that. And I mean, that was extraordinary. And I'd always do that now.
I had 3 different accountants try to explain it to me. The whole place has to be streamlined.
Start with 2 of the accountants.
I started with the
Joel,
Apple.
Could you come off stage? We're going to go
Leave him
backstage
right
for a
there.
moment.
I started with the Apple II team because we don't, make that anymore.
Just acknowledge the top guys.
Have a mimosa and relax.
You will not blow me off right now, Steve. The top guys.
There are no top guys. All right? On the Apple II team, there are no top guys. They're B players, and B players discourage the A players.
And the other thing he taught me was that, because the big thing in it is Steve Jobs is fighting IBM at the beginning. And he said, do you know where the word HAL from 2001 comes, the great computer in 2001? We begin with Arthur C. Clarke. And it comes from IBM, of course. Did you know this? IBM, HAL, they are the letters before IBM. Yeah. And that's where he got it from. That's where Arthur C. Clarke got it from. Yeah. Which I was just like, why didn't I know that? It was like,
wait a minute.
I didn't know about his fussy, about your fussy.
Oh, I see each letter.
Okay, yeah.
I before H and B before A.
That's incredible.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Arthur C. Clarke.
Probably one of the things that me and Ridley have in common is we both made our first movies with Harvey Keitel.
Mm-hmm. Right, the duelists.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Right.
And Harvey was, really took me under his wing on Reservoir Dogs. And one of the things that he taught me in auditions, and I've kept it to this day, is actors would come in and he would just say, Quentin, don't help them out in that very first reading. Don't give them any guidance. Don't tell them how you want the scene. Don't tell them what you're looking for. They've had the material themselves, and they've come up with their own thing.
Yeah.
You will never, ever see what there was in their head the very first time unless you let them do it. An adjustment is the easiest thing in the world to give. And you're the director, they'll do whatever you say, but let them do their first shot at it, what they came up with.
Yeah.
And I've held on to that for
good,
21 years, I guess.
It's true, I never rehearse, ever. I know what I'm going to do, I block it, they come in. I learned over the years, you can do one or two things. You can start off by saying, what should we do? And you're still talking at 1 o'clock and you haven't turned over yet. Or I know exactly what I'm going to do. I walk in, because I storyboard everything from scratch right through. And so I've shot it on paper before I get there. Actors will say, but you're leaving no room for me. And I've done every which way. I've had two very good actors saying, how about we have a go this way? I say, fine, ready? Action.
And the time it takes to talk
all they
about
end up
it,
doing
you
is
just do it.
talking, standing, fisting each other in the middle of the bloody room.
Yeah.
And there's a pause, they cut, long pause, then turned to me and said, that was really boring, wasn't it? I said, that's terrible, really boring, dude. And so you got to have the plan. If you got the plan, I tend to go, right, I got an idea. And they usually go, because I try and turn it into a big team effort. And when I'm talking to an actor, actress about will we work together or not, I talk about everything but the bloody screenplay. Because I want to just know who you are. I don't, and Harvey's absolutely right. Don't tell them what you want. I want to see how you tick, dude.
But so you have changed as a director because I think when you began, you didn't have that ease with actors.
Terrible.
Or with crews.
Do you want a quick anecdote?
Yeah.
Okay, quick anecdote. Zed Carr's into Softly Softly. Somehow that
Two
has
British television shows.
16 years they were. And there was one guy in there who looked like Broderick Crawford, his name was Stratford Johns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can say he was scary, absolutely scary. And I somehow got in early on as a director from being in art department BBC to, they gave me a shot. David Rose, God bless him, said, I'm going to give you the second show in on Softly Softly, dude. This is live, with 13 million people sitting there watching. So you got a full day rehearsal, then you're on that night and somebody on the set is going, and all the actors stand there looking terrified, okay? The week prior to that, you've got a week's rehearsal in some terrible church hall with sets laid out on the ground with tape and tables in a cup, and PAs running around with stopwatches saying, cue darling, cue darling. Stratford's moving from 16 years playing this guy Barlow to Softly Softly, still Barlow. So I'm sitting there one day and I think it's time for a character change. So I walked in and I'm meeting Stratford John for the first time. I sat down, cup of tea, cigarettes, how you doing? I'm doing fine, scary then. I said, in short, I said, isn't it time for us to consider a change of identity and character for you? David Rose arrived within about 8 minutes, and I was that far from getting fired on the spot. And because I thought I was being enthusiastic and say, let's change your character. The last thing you want to do is change his character. So that was one of the first big lessons.
Do you have any regrets?
About what?
Professionally? Nothing. Way you've behaved, choices you've made?
No choice. No, I kind of like what I've done, actually. And you have to. You've got to know what you put out. I've got no regrets. You may be able to tell me. I should have regretted.
So I did this little kids film, family film. I'm very, very proud of it, called Millions. And it's a beautiful little film about a boy and his mom. And there was a music at the end of it, and I'm a big Clash fan, and it all worked out it was going to have this Hitsville UK, it's called, one of the great Clash songs, was going to be at the end of the movie. And I was persuaded out of it by one of these music supervisor people, who pick tracks. He persuaded me out of it to do something else.
Exactly.
Like when you said it, that's the only thing I could think about.
What about you, Alejandro?
Regrets of guilt feelings? Or,
guilt or something you didn't do you wish you had done or anything? Yes, Catholicism, sure.
I'm going from a Catholic background, so yeah, guilt is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that sometimes I will have loved to make decisions earlier than later, meaning that sometimes I have learned that when something is not working in a set, it will get worse. And sometimes I delay those decisions, sometimes because I want to be hopeful or I want to give a chance or I'm hiding myself, attending other priorities. And when I let those things go, then it back bad. So, I mean, it came worst. And I sometimes delay those decisions. And it has to do with not changing something that you are thinking or even somebody that is not working, that you are afraid to be polite, all those things. And sometimes that I will have loved to be a little bit more practical in that sense. I'm a little bit romantic, and then that can backfire me badly. So,
what about you, David?
I would say the same thing. I tend to be hopeful and positive about everybody and everything, and that's made me naive sometimes. And that's put me in situations that I later look back on and go, oh, no, you had a voice inside your head and you saw what was going to happen. You knew.
In particular examples?
And you knew, picking certain crew people you knew were not going to be in tune with you, and it turned out to be an unpleasant experience. Not being able to cut right to the chase with an actor emotionally, which I think my skills got better at that. Like feeling it right away and saying, let's talk about this. Let's bond about this. Let's go through this in a good way.
Tom, how about you?
I feel a lot of my life I'm fighting the possibility of regret, in the sense that whenever you make a choice to make a movie, it's 2 years of your life, and it's a huge investment, and you're not guaranteed that it'll find an audience or it'll go the way you want it to go. And I suppose I'm always afraid that I'm going to not do something and realise that was the film to do, or say no to a script and realise eventually that was the right thing to do. And I don't think it's yet happened to me, but I feel like it's just a matter of time. I will turn down something where I later realise that was my choice. But
Quentin, how about you?
I don't think I have any regrets artistically as far as the finished product is concerned and how I dealt with the artistic elements of it. I mean, the only thing that I actually really regret about my behavior when I'm making movies is just, especially when the film it's a long shoot, when it's gone on for like a long time. Every once in a while you just get tired, you get down. You just get sick of it. You just get sick of it. You've had it. You've just effing had it. And that day I feel sorry for myself. And I'm a grumpy a-hole. And everyone, Quentin's in a bad mood and to stay away from him and everything. And I really regret that. And what usually snaps me out of it is like, poor you. You are living your dream, and it's so difficult. Let's everybody fucking cry for Quentin. And it usually snaps me out of it. I mean, the biggest example of that was at some point after making Kill Bill for almost a year, I was in one of those moods, and in it, Zoe Bell, who I've now used as an actress, and she's even in Hateful Eight, she was Uma Thurman's stunt double. And I had kind of taught her how to be an actress and not just a stunt double. I wanted her, even if she's wearing the motorcycle outfit and a helmet on her head and everything, I want her to think the thoughts of the character. I want her to know what's going on. At first, she kind of laughed at that, then she took to it, almost like a duck to water. So I'm having one of those nights where we're shooting a night shoot and I'm just all like pissy about everything and I'm sick of this. And then all of a sudden I hear this call as Zoe needs to talk to you. Zoe's sitting there in this yellow jumpsuit, motorcycle outfit. She's on a motorcycle. She's got the helmet on her head. And I'm like, yeah, what do you want? And she goes, Clayton, I just want to know, what do you want me to think about? We're getting ready to shoot the scene and I'm at the stoplight and I'm seeing Sophie Fatale. What do you want me to think about? And my heart just cracked open and I felt so happy. I'm almost getting teary-eyed thinking about it right now. It's like, oh my God, I've taught her to be an actress. I've taught her to think like an actress. And it just brought me back. It just brought me right back. And it's one of these emotional moments that I've always remembered in my career.
Before we wrap up, just a couple more questions. Is there a dream project you'd love to make that you've never had the chance to?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but then hopefully you're going to do that in
Which
the
one is
future.
it?
The future, I don't want to say, but there's big things I've been working on in writing.
It's a good idea.
Somebody will stop you.
I'm gonna go make it. I'm gonna go make it. I'm gonna make it. But I mean, there's always, there's things that it's good to have dreams that you want to do. What I don't like, what I don't like is when you don't. I like having that dream that I want to do that is maybe unattainable. And in some sense, I think everybody at this table has something in our minds that we write or think that is unattainable. It's magic. And if we capture as much of it as we can, we're fortunate. But I like having an unattainable thing that's exciting to me. Yeah.
One very last question. I don't know if you all saw that Japanese film Afterlife.
No.
The idea of it is you go to the sort of way station between life and heaven or wherever, and you're allowed to take one memory with you. One memory of working on a film, one memory of a scene you've done. What would the memory be?
Wow.
Long pause. Ask the easy questions.
The closest now for me was that the way we shot The Revenant was like contrary, completely different what Ridley was saying. We were rehearsing everything because we were shooting in very remote locations. And we did do, it was like 2 hours travel. All the, there was a huge action scene, an attack. So we were rehearsing for weeks, every bit, because it was this long shot. It was really unnerving, and everything from the focus puller to the movement of the camera to a guy looking to camera to, all the special effect that was dangerous that we have to figure out another, all those hundreds of decisions in a thing like that. And there was a moment that these guys are jumping into the boat.
It's hard to pick. I'm deciding between three moments right now. There was the day on Silver Linings Playbook where the sort of climax of the film where the braciole is being cooked and everybody's in the house. And it felt like I was living in that house with that family, with Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro and Jennifer. And she comes in and takes over the movie and with every actor there. That was a wonderful day. Two others are musical. An American Hustle, singing Delilah with Christian Bale and Jeremy Renner, and it just had such a wave of beauty about it. And Bradley and Amy dancing to Donna Summers, it felt like a wave of cinema to me that just was like propulsive all the way through her screaming in the bathroom. And in Joy, there's singing in the snow. That's the magic moment.
Danny, what about you?
We shot a scene in 28 Days Later that we never used, where they were driving around in a taxi cab through post-apocalyptic, zombie-eyed Britain, and they sang Hotel Yoba, the White Stripes song. So it would be that. We never used it in the movie, but I'd remember that. I always wanted to do a musical, that's why.
Tom, your moment, this is for eternity.
In case you're missing the pressure, Tom.
Because I'm back here in America, there was a moment on shooting John Adams when the Continental Congress had to give the vote about whether to go to war with the British. And it was one of those strange moments where one felt the import of the moment for the country rather than you were shooting a bunch of actors putting their hands up. There was something there when I kind of forgot the theatre of it and felt very connected to that decision and its implications.
Ridley?
Was a terrible false start on a film called Gladiator. And we had no script, fundamentally, for the whole first act. And I was shooting the German front and the Roman army, where we built the trenches and all that stuff, about 5 miles east of Gatwick Airport.
Oh, wow.
And, you don't have to go to Everest to shoot Everest, So, and I had the whole German army standing on the left, a bunch of Scottish. They were all Scottish barbarians. They weren't German, they were Scottish. And the Roman army on the right, and I go on the trail in the morning, and Russell and I look at each other. There's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. So I said, we said, so what are you going to do? He said, what am I going to say when I walk out on those Bofors guns? I said, you could say, looks like snow. He said, what kind of line is that? I said, just say it looks like snow. What do you want, a soliloquy? This is where Russell and I started to really get to know each other. And, I said, before we do that, I want to walk down the middle of the valley, you and I, the army over here and Black Forest over there. And there's going to be a twig here where there's going to be a bird on this twig. this is what's a great actor also, bird on a twig, and you're going to ponder on that bird, and I'm going to start the film on that bird, then I'm going to go to you, then he's going to turn and look at the forest, and there's something very ominous about that black forest, and then we're going to start the movie, okay? He said, all right, that's how we began. And it was always that, we were both very nervous because there was nothing there. 45 minutes later, when he got to the Bofors gun, it started to snow.
Magic.
Wow. So it was a good omen.
Quentin.
He just looked at me and went, did you do that? I said, yeah, of course.
What memory you'd like to take with you?
Well, I'm really glad you asked me to go last. All right, you know, I was, I don't know if I buy your concept of that's what I'm taking to heaven or way station or whatever, all right, but trying to remember one moment after over another as far as a feeling and putting myself there, i.e. the feeling, as opposed to a landmark or a good scene. I guess it would be either once we'd finished the twist contest in Pulp Fiction, or Uma dancing to Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon by herself and the connection that we had in doing that. You know, it was just this thing in my head. And, you know, and that twist sequence in my head would have been there if John Travolta had done it or not, all right? I just ended up having a magnificent dancer who actually people wanted to see dance. You know, that was the part I didn't quite get. That was the benefit when I saw it with an audience. Oh my God, there literally is that moment when I watched it with audiences who hadn't seen it before the first time. When he kicks off his shoes, there literally was this murmur in the audience, oh my God, he's gonna dance.
I remember.
And so that was this iconic thing in my head, and then to capture it, and at one point, I operated the camera at some point. Now, I had to stop dancing when I was operating the camera. I found myself going like that. But that was a really lovely moment, and you know, and I was still very young in my career, so I had something in my head, and we'd put it on screen, and we'd captured it, and we had that whole, you know, Jackrabbit Slims around us, and we were there. It was very lovely.
Good. Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for taking part in Close Up with The Hollywood Reporter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.